Welcome to the cave, which as you can see is full of bits for the car and various tools and things. So this is a video about how we got into stage rallying, and for the uninitiated, stage rallying is basically driving down forest roads or on tarmac roads at high speed with a co-driver telling you where to go. For a lot of people it's basically trying to pretend to be Colin McRae. And this is the first in a series of videos that we're going to make, which hopefully give you some idea of what it takes to start in rallying and our experiences in doing just that. So how did I get here? Well, like many people, I started in the sport spectating with my parents, stood in the forests of Yorkshire and Wales on cold dark days, and we ended up being one of those people stood around in yellow and fluorescent orange, the marshals, without whom we all have to acknowledge in the sport would not be possible. And so thank you to all the marshals, thanks Dad, and all those who give their time freely to allow us idiots to compete. So once my wife had actually agreed to do this, mad as she is, even though I'd been around the sport for years, I had to figure out where to start. And on the face of it, it seems quite simple. And by the way, you're going to get used to a lot of lists. And so my list of how to get going was get a license, find a co-driver, which happens to be my wife, get the cash together, fairly important that, it's not a cheap sport, buy a car, the fun bit, join a car club, enter an event, and away you go. As I said, it seems really simple, and some of it is, and some of it isn't. And hopefully this video is going to be fairly instructional on the bits that we found out along the way. So everybody who wants to compete in motorsport, whether they're a driver or a co-driver, needs a competition license. It's the same for virtually every form of competitive motorsport in the UK. And in the UK, the organisation that issues these licenses is called Motorsport UK. To get a licence, all you have to do is register on their website. Once you've figured out how it works, get your rallying starter pack. And if neither of you have ever held a licence before, both the driver and the co-driver will need to apply for the pack. For the co-driver, once you've received your pack, you need to complete a few more forms and then you'll get issued with your stage rallying navigator's license. For the driver, however, you need to take a test. This is known as the BARS test, and you can take it at pretty much any approved rally driving school in the UK. Before you take the test though, you do need to read what is known as the Blue Book. Its official title is the Motorsport UK National Competition Rules, but its title used to be the Yearbook. It's produced each year and contains all the regulations for the various forms of motorsport, including rallying. You'll particularly need to familiarise yourself with Chapter 13, which was previously known as Appendix R, which contains the regulations for stage rallying. You'll need to read and understand this, as the BARS test does include a test on some of the regulations, most of which is about the various safety aspects when you're actually competing. Once you've passed your test, you can now apply for your licence, and you'll get a basic licence known as an interclub licence. This entitles you to enter most rallies and various local championships. Once you've finished enough of these, typically 6, you can apply for a licence upgrade, getting signatures on your licence card, and you do have to finish, so then you can do more advanced events such as national and international events. So now you've got your licence, you can go rallying at any event. Well, yes and no. To enter an event or championship, you need to be a member of the right car clubs. More of that later in this video. So next, you need to find a co-driver. For various reasons, I chose my wife to be my co-driver, but the two key ones that stood out for me was, 1, she can work out how to get from A to B reading maps, and 2, she can do this whilst being thrown around in the car whilst I drive around at high speed, and she can do all of this without throwing up, which is pretty crucial for any co-driver. You can, of course, choose anyone to do this for you, provided they have or are willing to get a co-driver's licence. Point to note, though, is that given that most people who want to go rallying believe that they might actually be the next Colin McRae and believe that they are really good drivers, co-drivers can actually be quite hard to come by. So many people actually end up asking their mates to do it. The more masochistic of us actually choose our partners, and we're going to let you know how that goes in the upcoming videos. So let's talk about the dirty word here, which is the cash. and really the world is your oyster when it comes to stage rallying. You can spend as much or as little as you want. There's no getting away from it. All forms of motorsport are expensive. Stage rallying, as I mentioned, can be particularly so. For many sports, you can start with as little as a tenner, buy a football and some football boots. In rallying, the costs run into thousands, and that's just to get to the start line, let alone be competitive. There's a basic minimum cost, even outside of the car itself. This is the cost of your safety equipment. So your helmets, harnesses, race seats, race suits, fire extinguishers, etc. All of which must have the correct certifications, and they all have a use-by date, no matter how much they've been used. That's typically about 8 years. If you're starting from scratch without any of this stuff and you're buying brand new, that's probably at least 4K for driver and co-driver. And in 8 years' time, you put it in a skip or you sell it on eBay for other forms of motorsport. Personally, I'd always recommend buying the best stuff you can afford. After all, this is the things and bits and pieces that are designed to save your life and prevent injury. So you really need to buy the best stuff. If you have the means, when it comes to cash, if you've got loads of cash, you can just turn up and hire everything. Car, prep, service crew, just turn up the event, drive, bugger off at the end of the event. Most of us, though, aren't actually in that position, and I'd argue personally that that's missing out on half the fun of going rallying in the first place. Next is the bit that every driver gets excited about, and that's choosing the car. Basically, you're going to end up buying the best one you can afford and that you really want, and then you realise just how much other stuff you actually need to buy. Wheels, tyres, spares, etc., alternators, a whole host of other things. And of course the car you bought will need prepping for each event, even if it's just a cursory look over. If you're lucky enough to have the facilities and the time to prep the car yourself, that's going to help to keep the costs down. But even then, you'll need some help on the event itself with servicing the car between stages, looking after it because you may have damaged it, etc. For us, we've decided that we're going to go historic rallying, and so we've bought a Peugeot 205. The reason for that is that everybody else who does historic rallying seems to have bought the Ford Escort, so we decided to do something different. My wife's already christened it Eric, after a certain footballer, because it's French and stroppy apparently. So we will see how we get on with Eric the Peugeot in the events that are coming up. So the next step is to join a car club. Once you've done some research, the easiest bit seems to be joining a car club. You just pick one, right? Well, yes and no. Once you do some more research, you also discover you need to join the right clubs, which is probably more than one. Why? Well, it's not because you want to meet nice, like-minded people in your area, which is why you join your first club. The reason to join the others is to be able to enter an event that you want to. For most events, you actually have to be a member of at least one club that's associated with that event. So often you actually have to be a member of the right club to get into the events that you really want to do. Membership of a club in the South East of England, for example, is probably not going to get you eligible for events that are running in Scotland. The good thing about joining a local club is that people are generally really helpful and can offer loads of advice, connect you with the right people. More importantly, there's a load of people there who can dish out bucket loads of sarcasm, and it has to be said, it's normally directed at each other. So finally, you've got your license, you've got yourself a co-driver, you've joined a few clubs, and you've finally bought your car. So now you can enter the events that you want to do. And the choice there is really quite broad: gravel, tarmac, multi-venue, single venue, and also you can choose which championships you want to enter. These can be at a regional level, they can be at a national level. There is an awful lot of choice. Some of these are dependent though on the type of license you have. Typically national championships require a national license, which is okay for the co-driver, but the driver, as we mentioned before, you'll need to have completed 6 events if you've just got an interclub license before you can enter a national event. But effectively, you're now ready to go stage rallying. And in the next few videos, we'll talk a bit more about the event preparation that we've been doing, and also actually what it's like to be on the event. And hopefully we'll get some in-car footage of our first attempt at stage rallying. So hopefully see you soon.